All right. Here we go, guys and gals. And
we are here. It is 1:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon.
Mountain time.
Yeah, mountain time. I'm here. Ethan's over there as usual. But surprise, surprise, on an emergency episode, we have a guest. We have this guy. He hosts two podcasts. One is on the board, and I don't know what the second one is because I haven't had the time to research. But yeah,
Wow.
This guy is a big F1 fan, a huge Yuki Tsunoda enjoyer. He's got the AlphaTauri hat on, which is now longer old. It is the one, the only Morgan Tremmel.
I still think it's AlphaTauri. Curse the Visa Cash App, RB F1 Team Chicken Nugget, whatever they're gonna call it at this point. It's AlphaTauri. Yuki Tsunoda's my goat. I love that boy. Can't wait to go to his restaurant.
So, if you clicked on this episode, you already know what we're talking about. But Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes, the team he's been with for over 10 years, to go to Ferrari at the start of the 2025 season to team up with Charles Leclerc, leaving a hole open at Mercedes. There's a whole lot of fallout of this. Just, Andrew, what was your initial thoughts when you heard this?
I was surprised. There have been rumors in the past that Hamilton's going to Ferrari as a kind of a trade with Ferrari for Leclerc to partner with Sainz, but no one had rumored that that Hamilton would be going and driving with Leclerc. That surprised me. I was very surprised, shocked by the news. That was my initial reaction to it. Yeah.
I personally, I thought it was a troll post when I first saw it. I was like, this is like some F1 meme posting. I really thought it was. Then I saw it. I saw a bunch of stuff. It's confusing to me because it's interesting in so many ways. What's happening at Mercedes? Is something wrong with the new car? Is Toto Wolff leaving? What is happening? There's just so many unknowns that just questions.
Yeah, exactly. It just brought up so many questions. I mean, my first thought when I saw this news right when I woke up. I went on Instagram. It was the first thing I saw. My initial thought was just, what? Because it really is just that, what? You never thought that Lewis Hamilton would be ending his career at a different team than Mercedes, and if you did, you thought he was going to go maybe 1 year at McLaren, back where it all started. I don't think, like you said, Andrew, there were rumors in past years that one day Lewis would join Ferrari, but those just never really seemed real to me, and I never bought into Lewis and Charles are going to do a swapperoo, especially after Charles just signed that extension of his. Yeah. It just never seemed like a possibility to me. And Mercedes F1 is Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton is the Mercedes F1 team in a way. That team is built around Lewis Hamilton. He is leaving that. He must have lost faith, or maybe he just wants a new challenge. I don't know, but he's leaving a team that is built around him to go into a team that's going to be built around Charles Leclerc. We were talking about this last episode, but now it is confirmed that Ferrari is just going to be building around Charles Leclerc, but now they also have Lewis Hamilton.
Well, the thing is here is this leaves this is, I think, undoubtedly we can agree this is a good thing for Ferrari. This is a boost for them.
For sure.
You think?
I don't.
Really, I'd like to hear about that in a second. But this leaves a question about George Russell. Is he the number one, or are they saying that George Russell's the number one? Because I think that's the obvious choice, and then you replace him with somebody like, I think Alexander Albon would be a great
Albon is my pick to replace Lewis.
I think
we can talk about that later on.
There's so many options now that open up, and this is a real shakeup around the entire F1 scene. The rings around this are ginormous because this is going to disrupt Alpine probably in some way. I think it's either Albon or SD, personally, and it's just a shockwave that's going to radiate in 2025, and this really shakes up the market next year.
Yeah, this shakes up the entire grid.
Yeah, it's like someone took the 20 seats and decided to do 20 card pickup with them.
Yeah, we already had 13 driver contracts ending before the 2025 season would get going underway, which means that we're going to have a lot of moves going into that season. But a 14th driver, Lewis Hamilton, I guess he must have had like a driver's option on his contract that he declined in order to go to Ferrari. This is just the start of a crazy, silly season, really.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you think this is a good thing
I've
for
got
Ferrari?
a couple things. First of all, I have seen in the past that Lewis Hamilton might want to start his own team. Whether that he'd be driving for it or not, that would be an interesting question, but I thought that would be a possibility. And I do find it surprising that it's this early in the year. Before the F1 season starting, even with all the car livery unveilings and launches and stuff like that. It's surprisingly early. And I want to touch back to what I said on, I think, Tuesday, is how Carlos Sainz wanted to know where he was driving in 2025 before he started driving in 2024. That isn't going to look like it will happen, but there's still a month, not quite a month. Hamilton leaving Mercedes is after 11 years is surprising. Yeah. It's gonna be I think his 11th season now. But why I think Sainz is better than Hamilton today, and this is today. If you were to ask me this 3-4 years ago, I would be not saying that. But today, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc are like a puzzle pieces that fit together. They work well together. I think it's a team issue, not the driver issue, for them to be succeeding at the level of Red Bull is. With Hamilton, who's a number one driver, and Leclerc, who's a number one driver, that's going to butt heads, cause friction within the team, and cause both drivers to not perform where they want to perform.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you when it comes to your point of Charles and Carlos working super well together. That is, I mean, top end of the field when it comes to driver pairings in terms of talent and how well they work together. There's not really a lot of butting heads over there. It seems like a harmonious relationship. But when you get the opportunity to add Lewis Hamilton, even at 39 years old, you have to take that opportunity. You want that push. The two drivers are pushing against each other to get better and better and to take the team to new limits. And I think that Carlos is an amazing driver. He performs amazing in his own way, but he's not the kind of driver that's going to push Charles to the next level. Carlos is consistent. He gets the job done, but he's not a Lewis Hamilton. It's really as simple as that.
I mean, there's this situation that people look at. Oh, look at Max Verstappen. His teammates don't push him. Max Verstappen is a unique individual where he pushes himself harder than I think I've seen pretty much any other athlete.
Yeah, and in order to catch up to Red Bull, you need to have a team dynamic where everyone is pushing to get to that next level.
I think the pushing will come to shoving. I look at Mercedes in 2016, 2015, 2014. It caused Nico Rosberg to retire after he won a championship.
I think that's different.
And
Nico and Lewis already had a relationship from when they were children, like that just didn't, as they got older, it just grew into something unhealthy. But I think that now Lewis is also older, and I don't think, of course Charles thinks he's the best driver in the world. You have to have that mentality as an F1 driver, but I don't think there's that same thought process in his head where he's living to beat Lewis Hamilton. He's focused on himself, and like I said, they are going to push each other, but it's not going to be like Nico, where Nico just lived to beat Lewis.
I think especially Lewis, he's at a different maturity level. People are like, oh, he was at this maturity level 2014, 2015, 2016. He was at that maturity level then. I think he's vastly matured since then. Even though, he's on the older side now, he's definitely changed as an individual. He's less, sure there's still, some little blips of, that I would say that are, where you worry that, he still has some conflicting issues with his driving partner and the team. But I think that in this situation, I don't see it going wrong like it did with Rosberg and Hamilton. I feel like this is a much more symbiotic relationship.
I think it's going to be a relationship like Lewis has with George. It's not the most perfect relationship, but they're not at each other's throats to the same extent that Lewis and Nico were.
Well, Lewis hasn't been in a car with a fierce teammate like that since 2016. And the fire hasn't been able to burn, as they say. If Ferrari does take a step forward this year with the car, the fire could be lit, and when there's fire, things burn. Bridges burn. And with that being said, who knows? It might be Lewis retiring and surprise retiring in 2 years. Well, won't be surprised because he isn't old. But it might be the other driver in the garage, Charles Leclerc.
Where would he go? He's locked up, and the rumor is that he's locked up through 2029. And it's just a rumor, but with these types of contract rumors in F1, most of the time they're true. I believe that he is locked up through 2029. Yeah. That's the most likely scenario. He's not leaving Ferrari. The worst case scenario in my mind that I can think of is that things blow over and Ferrari gets Lewis out of the team and they find another driver like Carlos to go back to the dynamic that Charles and Carlos have right now. Charles isn't leaving that team. Even with Lewis Hamilton coming in, Lewis is going to try to assert himself as the number one driver, of course, but that's Charles' team. Yeah. He is entering Charles' team.
That car is built for Charles. It's not built for Lewis Hamilton. He's not going to have the same level of heavy input, I don't think. He'll still have input because it's Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. But it's his opinion isn't going to be first anymore. No. If for some reason Charles likes a different type of side pod, if he likes understeer, oversteer, whatever he wants is what they're gonna give him, and Lewis Hamilton will have the input, but he won't be the guy who can say, this car is too much understeer, fix it right now, I don't like it.
You can go ahead, Andrew.
I think that if I'm at Ferrari, it would be a hard time for me. And this is what might be why I'm not a team principal, but I would
several reasons.
I would have a hard time saying no to a 7-time world champion if he wants a car a completely different way. But and here's the thing, and it's gonna be it will be difficult. I don't know if they will say no. I don't know if they'll say yes and do what he wants. But here's the thing: you look back to 2016. Nico Rosberg was under contract for 2017. And
he retired under his own choice.
Yeah. And same thing could happen to Leclerc. Under his own choice.
Why would he retire
20s.
though?
Why would he retire?
Yeah, see, that's the thing I don't get. Nico Rosberg was getting up there in age at that point. Charles is young I mean, he's not my King Yuki Tsunoda.
He's 26.
But he's 3 years. He would go somewhere else. With how many contracts there are, I mean, with Audi coming into 2026, if for some reason they decide to keep Hamilton over Leclerc, if it doesn't work out, I think a very real possibility is that him and Carlos both go to Audi.
I can't even fathom that though. Like I said,
I don't either.
The worst case scenario in my mind is that things blow over and Lewis is kicked out. You're not kicking out Charles. You're not gonna make Charles upset, who is your franchise player for the next however long. You're not kicking him out for Lewis Hamilton, who's gonna be in his 40s. Yeah. That's just not happening. But I think that this is a pairing that takes Ferrari to the next level, not only because it's two amazing drivers, but you're stealing a driver away from Mercedes, who is Ferrari's main competitor right now. Whatever driver Mercedes gets, they're not going to know Mercedes as well as Lewis Hamilton. They're not going to be able to drive the Mercedes as fast as Lewis Hamilton.
Not necessarily.
I think so. Lewis Hamilton is still supremely talented.
Yeah, he's supremely talented, but
you're taking away from Mercedes and you're adding to yourself. Ferrari is going to have so much momentum going into those new regulations in 26. It's such a perfect move for Ferrari. I mean, I feel bad for Carlos. And I think that teammate pairing could have lasted for longer, but you get the opportunity to sign Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton wants to sign for you. Yeah. That's what you do.
And also, the thing here is that this is I feel like this is everybody kind of this is way ahead of schedule, but I think this is teams giving up on the 2024 season. They've already surrendered to Red Bull. I feel with all this going on, there's obviously there has to be something wrong at Mercedes.
Yeah, maybe.
This is just a giant prediction, but I think this is just Lewis kind of, without saying anything, saying this car isn't up to snuff.
I mean, it is hard to fathom Lewis leaving Mercedes,
especially if the car did take steps forward. Why would he be leaving?
Yeah,
there has to be something wrong with the car or internal issues.
You can say Lewis likes to challenge himself, but that just doesn't work for me as an excuse. Like I just think, I could be wrong, but I just think that there has to be something else.
He might have gotten bored. But when I go back to comparing Charles Leclerc and Nico Rosberg was only 30 when he retired.
That's 4 years.
The reason he retired is because he accomplished winning the F1 championship. He beat Lewis Hamilton, won the championship. He had nothing left to do because, like I said, he lived to beat Lewis Hamilton. Like, if you've listened to interviews with Nico, you understand just how much he wanted that. Like, he basically just ignored everything in his life except for his focus on beating Lewis Hamilton. He wouldn't sleep in the same bed as his wife because he just only wanted to beat Lewis Hamilton. Like, that
is an obsessive issue.
That's a crazy story that Nico himself admits. Like, it's a completely different dynamic. That's not going to be the dynamic at Ferrari.
Charles is not going to destroy his life to beat Lewis Hamilton.
Well, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I feel like he's going to get pushed around by Lewis for 3-4 years. And
I think you're really discrediting how good of a driver Charles is.
Yeah.
If I'm a Ferrari, I just have a hard time saying no to what a 7-time champion.
But they're going to
because he hasn't won a championship, and because Charles Leclerc is locked up. That's the main. That's the main thing. Charles Leclerc is locked up. They're not gonna get rid of him. That'd be a massive contract to somehow figure out how to get rid of. Yeah. Like, you either visibly force him to leave and take an option or retire or something. And Lewis Hamilton's, not to call him an old man, but he's kind of old. I mean, dude's You say he pushed around 3-4 gets pushed around for 3-4 years at that age. Lewis Hamilton will be at what, 42, 43? He'll probably be looking to retire. I think this is all about. I think Charles is too good. He's too young. He's too hungry to retire just because a little obstacle gets in his way.
Yeah.
Strange things can happen. And just for me, just something just isn't adding up here. And for Ferrari, it just seems weird to me. And at the end of the day, that's what I've settled on, is just to, like, it just doesn't add up. I don't think. For me, I would have even. Here's why. I just think Sainz is a better driver than Leclerc. Is crazy opinion. I've said it before on here.
You've said it before.
This is nothing new. I value consistency. I don't like where this
Charles
is going
has the
for
potential.
Ferrari.
Part of this also has to go to Ferrari's strategy. Charles would be a much more consistent driver if he was on anywhere but their god-awful strategy. If he's anywhere else in the top 4, he's...
I think that this is going to be a little bit more like a different Mercedes partnership than you're talking about. I think it's going to be more like Michael Schumacher and Nico Rosberg. Nico was kind of the rising star of that team. Michael still was a good driver who could push him on his best day, but Charles was the Nico was the guy who won for them.
Yeah. Well,
I think that as however many years Lewis stays at Ferrari, whatever, I think it's gonna go more that direction instead of the ramp up of Nico and Lewis at Mercedes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Here's the thing, is Schumacher was coming out of retirement at that point to drive for them, and let's be honest, Schumacher's best days were behind him.
You could say that Lewis's best days were behind him,
yeah,
even though he's still a great driver, and he's joining a new team that the other driver has already embedded himself at.
I do think Hamilton still believes he can be a world champion.
I do too.
Well, yeah,
but as the contract continues, if he signs another extension at Ferrari, it's going to... I think it's just going to be more obvious that Charles is the number one. And I'm saying, I said at the start of the recording that Lewis is an amazing driver, world-class driver, one of the best on the grid, and they're going to have... they might have the best driver pairing on the grid. Like, right now, those are two insane drivers that are going to push each other, but I don't think that it's going to have the opportunity to build up over years into something super toxic.
And also...
like you're saying it will.
Well, Alpine's already toxic.
It's not, though. Everyone said it was going to be toxic, and it's not.
It's not as toxic as a lot of people thought it was.
It's a little bit...
But it's
there was like a few flare-ups over the year, and that happens almost every team.
There's a little bit of strain there where you can see, there's still competition who's the number one driver, but I think that's led to them being a better team. Even I think it's just different because Leclerc. If you look at the Rosberg and Hamilton, Rosberg was, they were both either, you could argue both were ascending to even higher heights, or Lewis was going up and Rosberg was staying the same. With Leclerc, he is going to keep going up, in my opinion. I think that's how his consistency, his talent, all of that will continue to rise. And Hamilton over the years, just based on him getting older, it's going to start to dip a little bit.
Yeah.
Still world class, but a little dip of a world class.
In order to stop ourselves from just going around in circles.
I will say one more thing about this.
Go ahead.
And I do think the Ferrari strategy is overhated. They're not as bad as they actually are.
Okay, that's a different subject for a different day.
Yes.
To avoid going around in circles, I want to move on to the next part of this conversation.
Hold on. I will say, this going back to 2013, Hamilton surprised everyone by leaving McLaren to go to Mercedes, and now he leaves Mercedes to go to Ferrari.
Yes.
That's just. I'm just throwing that out there.
What's your point?
Yeah,
It's just
empty. This is empty.
He's done it once. He's done it again.
Okay. We know.
I don't know.
Okay. And moving on to the next part of this, I want to talk about the trickle effect of this happening.
Right.
So, who do we think is going to be that second Mercedes driver? Because, I mean, me and Morgan have kind of said already, but just going into more detail on that, who do each of us think? I'll let you start, Andrew, since you just want to talk right now.
If you think I want to talk, wait till we get to the Andretti portion. But if we get
We're not
to
going
that
to have
today,
time for that today.
That's just.
Just say who your pick
I
is.
think I want to see Carlos Sainz
Okay.
go to because he deserves a top tier seat. However, I do not think that. I think that Esteban Ocon, the race winner from Hungary a few years ago, will be going there.
Okay.
And here's why.
Yeah.
Esteban is a solid number 2 driver that you could put in there. Will do fairly well, like Sergio Perez is doing in the.
Except Sergio Perez isn't doing well.
Yeah, Sergio Perez is
I
doing
think
mediocre.
he's doing well. He's doing
He's
what
doing-
he needs to do.
He's doing mediocre.
He's doing what he needs to do is winning a couple of races and finishing second.
And then
In a Red
when
Bull.
the
But-
other cars catch up and he's still qualifying 9th every race, that starts to be an issue. You know what I mean?
He still finished second in this.
Right, but
it's not about the journey. It's about the destination.
Okay,
at the end
but-
of the day.
But okay, sure.
I'll explain.
But but going back, Ocon is solid. Ocon has ties to Toto Wolff personally. Toto Wolff is his manager.
Not anymore.
Or
It's
was.
someone else at Mercedes,
Okay.
I believe.
It,
now.
it was his manager. Still ties there. Toto has invested a lot in Esteban Ocon, putting him in the racing point, and what was then Renault, and now Alpine, putting him in there. I do think he is a driver that Mercedes will be looking at. They were looking at him for the George Russell seat.
It might still be Toto, actually.
But I do think ties there. Esteban and Gasly don't have the greatest relationship even before that was a driver pairing. I think he might want to leave Alpine and go to where the grasses are greener and the cars are greener too, in Mercedes.
Okay.
I would argue that the Gasly Ocon relationship has gotten better as they've been a driving pair. I don't think it's gone downhill. I think they've found out that they're just two highly competitive drivers who have, say what they mean. That's what they say what they want and they say it when they want. But the reason I think, I'm not going to speak for you here, but the reason I think Albon, Williams proven himself. I get all this. Logan Sargent was a rookie. It doesn't. That point disparity between the two is huge, especially in a Williams. No offense to Williams, but that's not necessarily the most competitive car out there. I just imagine what he can do with the engineering of Mercedes. I think that's just the most obvious one. He'll be looking for a big step up. It just everything clicks. It who says no?
Yeah.
It makes sense for Albon. It makes sense for Mercedes. There's no
I have a question. Is Albon still connected to Red Bull in any way?
Not anymore.
No.
Okay.
I think
Red
that seat's gonna be another really interesting one, especially with this Mercedes.
We'll talk more about like our entire predictions for the 2025 driver lineup in a later episode, but for now, just focusing on where Carlos is going to go, and right now what we're talking about with that second Mercedes seat. I also believe it's going to be Alex Albon. Albon and Russell have a great relationship. It will be competitive. It will turn competitive, but they still have a great relationship. And I think that their driver pairing will be something like, honestly, how Leclerc and Sainz is right now. One of them is a little faster, but they still are close enough where they can push each other, but it's not the same level of push that Charles and Lewis is, as we talked about earlier. But I still think that, if Albon goes to Mercedes, he'll be able to get George on his day, just like Sainz can get Charles on his day. But there is a clear order in that team. And, I don't think Albon's going to accept being a number 2 driver, but it's just going to work out that way in a way that I feel isn't going to be super toxic if that's what happens. And I think it's what should happen because Albon has proven himself. He's rebuilt his career as a very good driver, a very respected driver on the grid. And when you look at the other options, really, he's the only one that he's the only one that makes sense to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Ocon, yes, he has relationships and ties to Mercedes, but
I think he's very content at Alpine.
Not only is he content at Alpine, Pierre Gasly came into his team and beat him in the first year. It was a very close battle. To say he beat him, it was only by, 4 points or something like that. But still, Ocon hasn't proved to me that he deserves a jump to a top team. Maybe I'm crazy for that, but that's just my opinion. And
that's a fair opinion.
You look at the rest of the grid, who else could it be? Maybe Fernando Alonso. I don't think he wants to make another career move at this stage in his career. So really, it's just Alex Albon for me, and I think that makes the most sense. And we don't have a lot of time to finish up this podcast, so just very quickly going into Carlos. Where does Carlos go? Well, if that Mercedes seat isn't an option for him, which I think Mercedes will decline on, where does he go? I think he goes to Sauber.
Yeah.
That team is going to become Audi.
Yep.
He'll have to endure with a
steak F1 team for
Yeah, he'll have to endure with being at the back end of the grid for a while, but Audi's going to come in, and I have faith that they will at least be a midfield car. And Carlos goes there now. Spoiler for when we do our entire grid prediction. Pair him up with Teo Porcher. That's an amazing driver lineup that can really take a young team into the next level. You have the youth and the skill with Teo. You have the veteran experience with Carlos. I think that Sauber, Audi, Steak, Kick, whatever you want to call them, I think they make a big push for Carlos to join. His family has been his dad races for Audi. I don't know how much that matters, but there's a familial connection to Audi. It just makes so much sense. Would I be surprised if these two moves that we're talking about are killed at the same time by just Sainz going to Mercedes? No. But I don't think that Carlos goes there. I don't know. Maybe it's just a gut feeling, but I think that Audi just will make a play for him and give him an offer that he can't refuse.
I'm on the same boat as you. I think there's I think there's 3 options. Really, I did change from earlier today, but I think it's either he goes to the Mercedes, they do pick it up. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think the Audi is a real possibility. I could see him even this would be crazy. I could see him taking possibly 25 off to go do Carlos Sainz things. I don't know what he does his free time. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it'd be funny.
Maybe he goes to Williams.
Yeah, I could see that. That happens. Or he just goes to Sauber and Audi. Or, Red Bull does something crazy and decides to pick him up because,
Yeah, we'll save Red Bull for a later episode. But, Andrew, you want to wrap this up with your Carlos Sainz prediction?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. I think he's going to go to Alpine to replace Esteban.
Okay.
Because if that happens...
In your prediction,
he's still a solid driver on a midfield team. I don't think he's going to take a Williams or he was with that, or whatever the other teams are. I don't even remember. And he was with Renault in the past.
Yes.
I do think a reunion there is possible.
Do you mean he was Toro Rosso back in the day? Or
he was with Toro Rosso back in the day, but he was with Renault back in the past.
Yes, after Toro Rosso, yes.
And I do think relationship there already with the team. He might.
That team has changed so much, though.
Yeah, that team's not the same.
Yeah, but you probably still know some people there. But
sure.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if I'm a Ferrari fan, I'm still excited. If I'm a Ferrari fan, because it's an interesting thought putting Hamilton there.
It's also
And
Sir
I will
Lewis
and I do say Ferrari stock has risen
Exactly.
in the US. If I'm a fan, I'm excited, but I'm still not sure
You're cautious.
as an analyst.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think you're wrong in thinking that the lows of this could be far lower than what Ferrari is right now, but the potential high point of this Ferrari team is now so much higher with Lewis Hamilton there. You have to be hopeful, right?
Yeah.
So
Next year is our year, Ferrari fans.
that's really all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to this.
Thank you, Morgan, for coming on.
Yeah,
the
thank you,
podcast.
Morgan,
Thanks
for
for
coming
having
on. Thank you for listening to this emergency podcast, and we will go back to regular scheduling next week with the next episode after this dropping on Wednesday. Like always, goodbye.
To me, it looked like he actually lost the wheel.
The wheel for Ross Chastain is still and perfect.
Wheel on the track.
Did you leave the wheel loose?
You picked a fine time to leave me loose, wheel.